Peter from NT Realty, and today I'm at we're at one of my favourite restaurants here. It's right on the waterfront in Dobrota. It's called Portum. Brilliant fish restaurant, and they've been kind enough to let us make a video. Today I'm with Julie Karagod, or Barbie Donska, and she's a specialist in the getting residency for people in Montenegro. So Julie, just very quickly, give us a bit of background about your work experience and why you're in Montenegro.
Thank you, Peter. I have been living in Montenegro for 10 years already. My business is connected to business set up in Montenegro and immigration issues. I'm from Russia, naturally from Moscow. I worked for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that's why for me it's naturally to have such kind of business here.
Right, and we're talking about residency in Montenegro, and mainly there's three or four ways of getting the residency. Today we're specifically going to talk about residency through buying a property. Because we just actually did one video and it's 45 minutes long and we didn't cover everything, so maybe later on we'll do a live stream and we'll cover more things, more separate questions, but we just want to give you a bit of an overview of the residency. But in effect there's kind of 3 or 4 ways of getting residency.
Yes, there are, truly speaking, there are more of them, more ways up to the law, but the most popular, most usually using the property way. If you are an owner of property, you can apply for a permit. If you set up your own company and employ yourself in this company as a director and family member, the more rare thing is studying.
Studying, or the other way, as Julie was going to say earlier on, is if you're marrying somebody local and so on. But for the people watching the video, usually they want to come to Montenegro from Canada, South Africa, Spain, wherever it may be, and move to Montenegro, and they want to work out the easiest or the most beneficial way for them to come here. So today we're specifically going to talk about getting the residency through property and the pros and cons and some of the things that you need to think about. So Julie, what are some of the mistakes people make when they're applying for residency?
The most common thing is that people mostly do not consult the specialist before they start in their way to Montenegro. So one of the main common problem is the documents. If your document didn't prepare in an appropriate way, you can meet problem in Montenegro. What I'm speaking about, the most common problem is with the document called criminal record checking. And you need to understand that Montenegro is very a traditional country. It's not so developed as the EU or USA or Canada, etc. And here there is no still developed electronic paperwork. So in that case, Montenegro asks all documents to be original with stamp, real stamp and sign. So that's why usually it can be like you will go to Montenegro, will get your criminal check, and finally we'll find out that you cannot apply because Montenegro side will not accept this kind of document. And usually because of that you got your criminal check through email or online. So what you need to do, you need to check before you start any movement here. Before you decided to move here, you need to check if your document is appropriate or not. You can consultate with me and ask me if it's okay or not, because I may make some kind of consultation before we go into procedures with resident permits.
We went down a bit of a rabbit hole earlier on. This is the second take of the video, and after about 45 minutes we went, oh, there's far too much detail, so maybe later on we might do another video or live streaming or answer questions. So if you've got any questions, maybe leave them in the comment below and we'll try and answer each of your questions individually. The interesting thing to learn is actually, Julie touched on, is Montenegro, obviously, it's an independent country and does things in its own way. So you have to understand how things are done in Montenegro and make sure that you have all the appropriate documents and so on. So you cannot send an email of something, a school certificate or birth certificate or criminal record or so on. It has to be the original, and in many cases you have to apply in person for that for the residency.
Yes, correct. And I just want to add for the criminal record checking, there are different ways how you can solve the situation if in your country only online version are issued, as well as if, for instance, you found out yourself occasionally in Montenegro and far from your home. It's also impossible to help you with getting this criminal check. If you're from USA or Canada, we can help you with fingerprints and all these procedures.
So there are some ways around it, but you obviously need to make sure that these are acceptable in Montenegro. So other documentation, you need birth certificate, marriage certificates, things like that?
For property, no, only passports and a valid passport, and be sure that your passport is valid minimum 2 years.
Yeah.
From the moment you apply. In criminal record check, all other documents to be done in Montenegro for resident permit as a property owner. And another thing you need to understand that you need to have enough money on your Montenegro account to prove the state that you have money for living here.
That's 10 euros a day.
10 euros a day, so you can just count.
So for every person applying,
year.
you need to have 3,650 euros. So that's if there are 4 of you, you need 4 times 3,650 euros. You know, every time you apply for your annually renewable kind of residency permit. Time limitation. What's going on there?
Yeah, the next thing we need to mention here, because because of the questions of the people, what's better to set up company or to get the residence permit as a property owner. You need to understand the main things regarding property. First, if you are the property owner, you cannot to work in Montenegro legally. You cannot be employed. That's one thing. Another thing, you don't have any right for state medical insurance. Mm-hmm. You need to buy the private one. Yeah. And the last and very important thing is that in case if you want to apply for permanent permit in 5 years, you need to understand there are limitations for staying in Montenegro. In other words, you need to live here non-stop. I will explain in details if you don't mind, because there are the common questions about limitations. People cannot understand what's going on. So you need to understand that there are 2 levels, I call them 2 levels of limitations for absence. One level is 5 years level, which is common for everyone. Doesn't matter what kind of permit do you have. You cannot be absent more than 10 months during 5 years. And among these for 10 months, not more than 6 months in a whole, or at one time, at once. So this is one level. And another level of permit, another level of limitations for temporary resident permit is that you cannot be absent from from Montenegro more than 3 months a year from the date you get your permit, and within these 3 months, the only month you can be out just freely without informing and reporting to anyone. But in case if you are sure that you will be absent more than 1 month, but no more than 3, you need to report to the police. There is a possible procedure for it.
So essentially, you can live in Montenegro, and if you want to have residency, obviously you need to kind of show a level of commitment to living in Montenegro, and you can leave freely for a month of the year. If you need to leave for more than a month, up to 3 months, then you just need to make an application before you spend that time away, in order not to interrupt your contiguous kind of 5-year applications for residency, if residency is important to you. And again, this is why you need to speak to somebody like Julie to work out what's the best way for you, because maybe permanent residency is important to you, in which case you can just keep applying for annual residency, and it doesn't really matter. You can be vacant from the country more than 2 or 3 months. If it is, maybe buying the property is the right way of doing it, or maybe having a company is the right way of doing it. But then there are implications of husband and wife and so on. So again, speak to the experts and make sure that you're going about things in the right way.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Peter. Again, just I will to remind that if you don't care about permanent residence permit, just don't think about these limitations. These limitations are very important for those who want to apply one day for permanent residence permit.
So just one thing I just was thinking back on actually is when you buy a property in Montenegro, that is your qualification for residency. So that's why, like Julie said, it's quite simple. All you then need is your passport, and that's about it, really. So the ownership of the property is your qualification. But that's when your name is on the title deed. So usually that takes about 30 days after buying a property. So you'll find a property, buy it, go through the notary. Usually it takes about 30 days for the local municipality to register it in your name, and then from that point you can then apply for residency because you own a property in Montenegro.
Peter, I thank that you mentioned this very important thing, because I usually have this problem that people bought real estate and then they think that they can apply immediately. Not really. It is only possible when your name is put in the owner certificate.
Yeah.
Before that, it's impossible to do that.
So, and it's 2 people per property. So you can own a property 50-50 and both of those people can apply.
You're correct.
And it was actually Montenegro, because it's a young country, it's going through things, it's learning how to do things. It's not naive, but at one point they changed the law and that you had to be married in order that you get the property on the residency on the property basis. So a friend of mine then got married, and then later on they changed it and said, well, actually you don't need to get married after all. So you don't need to be married. You can live in sin and own a property together, and 50-50, and both of you get the residence permit.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Is there a way how people can solve the situation not to be married if you don't want to, just to record this property 50% for one person and 50% for another person, and just both of you apply for residence permit as a property owners.
So I think that about wraps it up. We're going to make this video much shorter. The last one was 45 minutes, so we're going to cut it down and say maybe we're going to do a live stream. We're going to really open it up. If you have some questions, leave the questions in the comments below. I'll leave Julie's direct contact details. You can contact her directly or through us. And like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and watch out for part 2 when we talk about residency through a company, and we're also probably going to talk about residency through the CBI program, Citizenship by Investment. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
And bye.
Thank you for watching.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.